Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. This is another episode of Your Questions Answered, and in last week's episode I answered another question from one of our readers, and the question last week was: the ICU team won't give me a copy of my dad's CT brain scan report. Should I challenge the ICU team and push for what I want? You can check out last week's question by clicking on the link below this video. In today's episode of Your Questions Answered, I want to answer the next question from one of my clients, Anna, as part of my one-on-one consulting and advocacy service. Anna's dad is in ICU, and Anna is asking how her dad can get off the ventilator and out of ICU to prevent another infection. So today's question is, how can we get our dad off the ventilator and out of ICU to prevent another infection? So these are excerpts from email consulting and advocacy sessions with me and Anna, and I'm going to read out the emails. Hi Anna, it's great to hear that your dad is improving neurologically. That's fantastic news, and you should keep looking at the positives and basically, quote unquote, rub it in the intensive care team's face. Use every little win in your dad's favor. As far as your question goes, the following is applicable. If he was breathing 47 breaths per minute for a longer period of time, they would have to increase the pressure support from currently 5 to 7 or 8 or even 10 to give him more support and reduce his rate of breathing. The picture could just be a snapshot of an artifact reading of the breaths per minute, which sometimes happens, and he might have been back to less than 30 breaths per minute 10 seconds after the picture was taken. That could well be the case, especially if your brother took the picture after your dad was mobilized. Oxygen levels are just slightly elevated at 35% on the ventilator. I am way more concerned about the breathing rate if it was accurate. Furthermore, I forgot to mention it looks like your dad is in an irregular heart rhythm, AF, atrial fibrillation, which is no surprise after 7 cardiac arrests. Anna writes back, Hi Patrick, many thanks for your email yesterday, very helpful as always. So here's the next update. We arrived in ICU this morning and the neurologist was waiting for us as arranged. One of the ICU consultants joined us as well. The neurologist asked me what I knew about my dad's condition over the last few days. I said that I hadn't seen him myself, but that my family reported he was doing much better neurologically. That's my assessment too, the neurologist said. I believe your dad is improving. I think he understands my questions when I come to visit him and that he recognizes me. It looks as though he has been to visit dad a few times. Why they didn't tell us this, we'll never know. His working diagnosis is critical care myopathy. He said he feels dad's ability to move his face and upper body is good. He said nerve rehabilitation will also aid respiratory function. The rest of his body is improving. He can now move his legs on command and spontaneously, not strongly of course, but the connection is there. He has scheduled a nerve conduction study for Sunday. He said his plan is for dad to be weaned off the ventilator so that he could be moved to his ward for neurology rehab. He said they can deal with tracheostomies and oxygen support fine there, but not ventilators. He said, can I promise 100% cognitive recovery? No, I can't ever make promises, but I'm hopeful of a very good level of recovery and cognition. He said, what your dad needs is time and specialist support. I was stunned. All my questions went out of the window. The ICU consultant agreed. Dad did 5 hours off the ventilator today. He said it's a slow process, but that he is cautiously optimistic that my dad could get off the ventilator. His chest x-ray does show some improvement. However, he did say, look, I feel constantly as an ICU professional that I'm sitting on a risk. Regarding your dad getting another infection, we really need to get him off the ventilator and ideally out of ICU in terms of infection exposure. Dad's infection markers are starting to climb again. They are 140. They don't know why, but he said they're monitoring it very carefully. I don't want to give him antibiotics blindly, as his gut flora will have been completely disrupted by many weeks of antibiotics. Plus, I don't want to put him at risk of resistance. But we'll keep growing all the cultures and act as soon as we need to, so we'll be on top of it. Again, the big advantage of being in ICU, right? Dad had his pacemaker fitted internally yesterday. I asked his nurse what medications he's on. He is on metformins for his diabetes, vitamins and folic acid. The sleeping tablet prescribed is Zopiclone. I think that's how I heard her pronounce it. The ICU consultant said he has tweaked the settings on the ventilator to give Dad a complete rest overnight. We need him really well rested every night for the physio and time off the ventilator each day. I took a picture of the screens for you tonight before I left at 8 p.m. The physios are going to try putting a speaking valve on his tracheostomy tomorrow. I didn't get a chance to ask the ICU consultant whether restoring gut flora or the use of probiotic therapy via his nutritional feeds is possible or advantageous for ICU patients. I think that's everything from today. Best wishes and many thanks as ever, from Anna. Hi Anna. How's your dad doing? Any improvements? Well, response from Anna. Hi Patrick. Well, my family reports that Dad has been doing better. They've been doing good physiotherapy. The physio team mobilized him as usual and got him to stand for a minute, I believe. And my brother feels it's definitely helping. Dad can squeeze a hand on request, move his legs and get to answer questions with a nod or a shake of the head. My brother asked him, are you comfortable? And he nodded his head. Are you feeling tired? He shaked his head. Are you feeling a bit achy from the physio? And another nod. The physio team are gradually trying the speaking valve. Apparently Dad made a good first attempt. They are dynamic. I really like them. They have brought a television in for him to watch Wimbledon and the World Cup, which he has seemed to enjoy. My brother says he seems to be focusing his eyes better. They have been maintaining his time off the ventilator. You may remember the ICU consultant said that my dad's infection markers were on the rise again. Well, they stabilized, so they didn't do anything, but as of yesterday they started to elevate again, so have started a course of antibiotics. They told my brother it's precautionary and that they hope as he is stronger he can fight this off. None of these samples or cultures come back with anything, so I assume they are using a broad spectrum antibiotic again. It does worry me, Patrick, I have to be honest. I worry that this will be the pattern going forward. As you say, it's critical to get Dad off the ventilator and ultimately out of ICU and into neuro rehab. I really hope he can do it. However, on the plus side, my dad is clearly stronger physically and better neurologically than he was a week ago. I plan to drive down to there on Saturday evening and spend Sunday and Monday with my dad. As you know, I live very far away with my husband and 2 small kids. In an ideal world, I'd like to be there every day, keeping on top of his care. Can I purchase another email package? I think it will definitely need it, as I have questions going forward, particularly after my weekend visit, and I very much welcome your advice and help as always, from Anna. Also, my stepmom went in to see Dad today and the physios were with him. They were practicing the speaking valve again. Dad told her, I love you, and obeyed all the questions to lift his legs, etc. He seemed to really understand. I don't know how this sits with the ICU consultant's comments on Dad's neurological status yesterday. Anna, I wouldn't worry about the ICU consultant's comment and go by what your dad is doing and how he's responding. He's talking makes sense, moving, expressing emotion, etc. Those are not the signs of a dying person. From Anna, my sister is unhappy with the disparity in communication with us. She feels it's unacceptable. Well, Anna, that is unacceptable, but it's also what often happens, unfortunately. Your strength will come from questioning everything and being your dad's best advocate, and look at where he's come from and how far he's made it from nearly dying 7 times. One of your challenges at the moment, Anna, is that you are too focused on the future. This always creates friction because we are all unable to predict the future with certainty. Try and stay in the moment, take one day at a time and look at the situation from a different angle. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. What do I mean by that? Your goal is to get your dad live one day after another and look at the small steps he's taking. Make sure he stays alive and he's taking small steps forward towards improvement. The longer he's alive and the more improvements he's making, the odds are increasing he will stay alive and get out of ICU alive. Keep focusing only on the positives and not on the negatives. Be persistent. It's a marathon and not a sprint. If you want to change ICU consultants, I would do that if I was you. I think your line of argument should be that you don't want any negativity around your dad. What I don't quite understand is where the neurologist is. Is he or is she still in the picture? Their views will still be needed going forward. And also, after reading through your emails over the last couple of days, I don't think much has changed with your dad's neurology from when we last spoke. If he is poking out his tongue and he's obeying commands, at least intermittently, he will be a GCS 11, a Glasgow Coma Scale 11, which is the maximum score for somebody on a ventilator with a tracheostomy who's unable to talk. If he has the speaking valve and he can talk and he's oriented and makes sense, as well as obeying commands, he will be a GCS 15, the maximum score for any person who is compos mentis. As far as the negativity goes from the intensive care team, please ignore. The fact of the matter is that your dad has gone a long way, and given that he has survived 7 cardiac arrests is a miracle in and of itself, and it shows his strength, tenacity and will to live. As I mentioned in the past, I cannot recall ever in nearly 20 years in ICU having seen anyone survive 3 or 4 cardiac arrests. This speaks loudly, and you should rub it into the ICU team's face that this is the type of man your father is, that he can't be beaten. The negativity is not going to help anyone but the ICU team's agenda, which is to empty their ICU bed as quickly as possible, because it blocks a bed and it costs them around £3,000 per day. ICUs know what's happening inside of ICU, not what your dad's life might look like outside of ICU if he gets to that point. Also, if your dad is more awake and can respond, now might be the time to ask him what he wants. You're saying the tone was cautiously optimistic last week, and now it has changed. And again, I'm not surprised by it, because the ICU team is very concerned to look after your dad indefinitely with an uncertain outcome. That's an ICU worst case scenario, and your dad is in the midst of it. Approach everything from that angle, and that your dad is the ICU team's worst case scenario and they're trying to manage it. They also know by now that you are not giving up, which is another added worst case scenario for the ICU team. You should take all of that as a compliment, by the way. Please also look at the comments below that I sent in another email. Please also send through another picture of the ventilator and the monitor if you can, and I will make some comments there as well. So thank you for watching, and thank you Anna for being a client. So how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one? How can you make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You will get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you will learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you will learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions, discover the many competing interests in intensive care, and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You will get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's Your Questions Answered episode, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also have a look at our blog section for more tips and strategies, or simply send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Also, have a look at our membership site intensivecaresupport.org for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. You can also call me, find phone numbers on the top of our website. Also have a look at our ebook section where you get other ebooks and videos, and you can also get one-on-one consulting and advocacy with me over the phone, via Skype, via email, and via Zoom. And you can click on the relevant product tabs on the top of the website. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll talk to you in a few days.